See, to me, this is a tough spot for a flat set. I see a couple of decent ones, but
this ain't one of them, right?
No, but
well, it's not.
But I mean, it's your brain's doing whatever you would do if you're in this situation at home. That's kind of what I'm trying to get. But if the best way I've learned to do different sets is force myself to do them everywhere, no matter what. And it's amazing how creative you get.
Now, do we want to move to a different spot and make this, Clint?
No, I want to see what you're going to do. Just as long as you can tell me why you're doing what you're doing. I really don't care what the reason is, as long as you got a reason.
Attraction point, a small attraction point.
Okay.
Not a whole lot, but it is something. I'm going to put a hole here and a hole probably back in this area. Have a walk-through type set.
Now, I'm getting the feeling you're just trying to get something done, something done, right?
Sure.
I mean, let me ask you this way. If I weren't here and I wasn't asking you to do this, would you be doing what you're doing right now?
That I don't know. I would have to look around more, and I would study the terrain a lot longer probably. And
okay. But would you feel confident with the set you're getting ready to put in? If I bet you $100 you're going to catch a coyote here or not, would you do the same thing you're doing right now?
Dig a dirt hole.
Probably, yeah. I would probably dig a dirt hole in this situation.
Well,
it would be more of an attractor, more of a visual eye appeal.
Okay, so you're going to try to use that little stick almost like a P post, or okay, let's not do that.
Okay.
Can you see? Look at that.
Yeah.
You put that piece of burnt wood out there, and
I wouldn't move it. If it was me, here, hold that camera on. If it was me, you picked a very good place. It's not the most advantageous for flat set, and that's what I'm having you do, so you're at a disadvantage. Because this road, like I said, goes way down this way and it goes in another field. You can see the way this old 2-track is here. There's enough animal traffic, and I guarantee you some of it's coyote. And I've got an advantage. I've been trapping here for 6-8 years. So you picked a good spot. What I would do if I was you in this situation is, for one, you always want to make your sets with the less energy as possible. If you got to work at it really hard, you're doing something wrong. Now, what you're trying to do, it seems really forced. You know, because I would say this after you put it in, so let's not go there. So
yeah, very good. I appreciate that.
What I would look at is this right here. You see how that kind of goes down? Now, all a flat set is something without a hole, right? So you can just put lure and bait right there, and then now you're done. And now you can see where the trap should go. So that's really low energy. The coyote's gonna have no trouble smelling it at all. And the stick's not gonna really be a visual point anyway.
And they might look at it.
Yeah. And if you wanted more visual, you could just tear the ground up around it and turn the leaves over.
But am I putting in a flat set per se?
Well, yeah, that's a flat set. Another thing you could do with this right here, because what I'm looking for, guys, is a way to control a coyote. Like when we go look at his flat set, it's a 50-50 on the control issue. Here, a coyote's not gonna have any trouble going into this at all. It's not gonna bother him. You could easily just put lure right under this log right here. They're gonna know it's there. There's no way they're not gonna know this is here. Then you can blend a trap out in front without having to try to move or force something. So you're better off just when you're coming up to a place, think of it from a lazy trapper's point of view, because the more you do, the more disturbance you're going to make on a flat set. And just putting lure and bait up under that and blending in a trap will catch anything that comes up here. And there's no energy in that whatsoever.
Now, Clint, am I wasting my time trying to dig a fancy trap bed and all that?
I don't know what you mean by fancy.
Well, like here, you know, I'm pounding, you know, I'm pounding and chopping, and this is a, you know, this is a lot better soil.
Well, you always want to, the lazy trapper part is what I'm saying. When I was in the swimming pool business, I had a guy, his name was Edward. He was a terrible worker, but he made me a lot of money because he was so lazy, he would figure out ways not to work, which would save us time. The only reason I kept him on, because he was a pain in the butt. Now Edward would have immediately, because he was so lazy, would have figured out the difference in the soil right there. And see, there's nothing wrong with that.
But that's harder to break down.
You're in a road on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
So now you're getting into the sandy, loamy stuff. So I would just put the lure and bait down in there and blend that trap out with the leaves.
Down out in here? Or
Yeah.
You want me to put in the trap down
Yeah,
here?
I mean, to me, a minimum rule is about 12 inches. And you're going to do everything that other set would do without having to work.
And probably more. So I'm going to guess, have they already worked this for a mouse? Or
It's probably an old log rotted out or something, I would say.
All right, anchor point.
Well, let's keep going now. Got to keep thinking. Now, we're going to get rain Friday. So what's that going to do?
It's going to make mud holes.
And your lure and bait's going to be underwater.
Mm-hmm.
If we put it under this one, which is the same situation, you're not going to have to deal with a weather issue. So which one do you think would be better to use?
That one right there.
Because you always got to think ahead on whatever you're doing, or it's going to come back and bite you in the butt
Yeah,
later.
see, you know, I really have to get out of the mentality of the old trap and box set. That's my whole mentality. That's what I have to get away from.
Because the only resemblance of a coyote and a fox is they both have fur.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And you would definitely catch fox in that too.
And like I say, I'm not a diehard coyote trapper by no stretch. Never have been.
But see, if you put your lure and bait and you smear it up on the bottom of that, a coyote by nature is phobic. All the studies have been done on, you know what phobic means? Okay, so the higher you get the stimulus, the more stressed out the animal's going to get. So if you move the log over, like you were saying, and you move it out here, if that coyote lives here, and he's going to know that it's been moved. Because when we did our night vision stuff, every time I moved a rock or a log, they freaked out. So I don't like moving anything. If you move it out here, you're going to lose control issues. And there's no visual to that whatsoever. And the less visual you can get on a coyote a lot of times, at least on half of your sets per se, the better your coyote catch is going to get.
I'm going to pick a location right here, Clint.
I would. Because that way that can still fill up with water in here if it needs to. Your bait and lure's out of it. And this up here is kind of the hump, and that doesn't matter on a coyote. Water's going to drain everywhere except where your trap's at.
As far as wrapping around, is that fine on the smallest stuff? Just kind of figure it through there maybe?
I'll run a T-bar down through that.
Okay.
Just so, and the reason we're doing that is this is one of the places I do control work on, and I set the traps and the land manager runs them. So I can't, all he's going to do is drive by where we tell him they're at, and if he don't see an animal, he just keeps driving. So even though I'm using drags because all my stuff's set up that way, I've got to make sure that he can see the animal. So that's the reason I run a T-bar down through the drag. But is that making sense to you for what I'm saying?
Definitely. And I take it that you do want it up in the brush, correct?
Yeah. That's all I would normally do if I was just trapping. What all the studies have showed, the more stimulus you give a coyote, the longer it takes for that coyote to work the set. And then you'll have a certain amount of coyotes, if you overstimulate, that it will not ever work the set. So the lower you keep it, the better. That's the reason the natural part is a big groundhog hole is not a lot of stimulus to a coyote. But if you do something that sticks out to him, then if it looks man-made, now you're jumping up that stimulus. There's absolutely nothing in a set like this a coyote would ever know that you've ever been here.
Odor controls, not a big issue.
I don't think it's any issue.
Okay.
And I wouldn't lather my traps up with lure or...
Say that again.
I wouldn't lather my traps up with lure or, I mean, get stupid with it, but I don't really...
The odor control is, you're not so concerned about.
Not at all. As hot as it is today, I would not be afraid, especially because I'm not used to the heat yet. I may be setting traps with bare hands, and it doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother the coyotes. Red Edgeman was an older guy that I took instruction from. He was pretty big in the FTA, and when it got hot, he trapped in bare hands, and I thought that was like sacrilegious. And you know, he wasn't a big numbers trapper, because when I met him, he was close to 80 years old, but he didn't have any trouble catching coyotes barehanded. And I've talked to O'Gorman about it when I was out there, and he said I'm barehanded before. And mostly it's just because you get so hot, the gloves are just miserable.
Does this camera bother you?
Get away from me, Hawk.
She's asking about the scent control. When I took instruction from Ron and Pete, I was still wrapped up into all that, you know, because that's what you read. But that second day into it, he could tell that it was bothering him, or bothered me, because him and Ron both would have red man so much and they were just everywhere. It didn't make any difference, and they just turn around and pee or whatever, and it was driving me crazy, because I thought it mattered. And when Pete figured out that it bothered me, he said, we just took a fox out of a set, and he said, so you think that the scent makes a difference? And I'm like, well, yeah, I really do. He took that big wad of red man out of his mouth, and he put it down that dirt hole with his lure. And that old man spread them legs, and he unzipped his pants and peed right all over it. Next day we had a red fox. For real. And I'm not the only one he's done that to. That's kind of was his teaching method.
So I can see, now you ain't afraid to use a high backing.
Not at all. Coyotes aren't either. When we catch coyotes in Texas, and you skin a coyote in Texas, it has got mesquite thorns from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail, which means they had to go in cactus. If you've ever seen pear cactus, it's like a solid wall and it's got thorns all over it, and they don't care, because their food's in cover. As soon as they jump a rabbit, that rabbit's going to cover. So they're used to going into cover. That's a myth about they need to be able to look around and see around. And like in Craig's High Rolling Fox book, what was that guy's name? He was catching red fox. He was a co-author of the book. He was catching red fox by going off the roads in that high wheat that's about that tall and just making a 3-foot circle and putting a dirt hole. Now, a fox couldn't see nothing, and he was catching.
Clint, have you went away from using wire screen?
I have. I don't have anything against wire screen. I think it's still a very good option. To me, if the peat moss though, when I'm dealing with rain, as much rain as we get, it outproduces it. It lets the trap stay longer, especially when I'm using grass or weeds or pine straw, anything like that. When I have just peat moss and just organic matter, I've got to have a hurricane to mess the setup.
Now, for us up in north in Illinois, the peat moss and rain, we have issues with the freezing a little bit. So,
well, see, I'm kind of amazed, honestly, y'all are using polyfill. And because let me ask you a question: if I take that jar and we go back down to the shop, and I run that in water, and then I stick it in the freezer, what's it going to do?
Oh, it's going to freeze up.
Gonna freeze.
So, and an ice cube is not very compressible. And where y'all live, it's cold.
Yeah.
You know, so you see what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
surprised both of y'all are using that.
I don't use a lot of it, but I've never had an issue with it freezing.
Well, if it gets wet, it's going to freeze.
Well,
That's why we're here.
The glycol and.
But you don't need it with peat moss. I guess that's my bigger thing.
If you get water, if you get water and then it freezes, peat moss will still.
It depends on how much water. It normally takes peat moss about 12-15 days before it can even, if it's dry, before it can absorb water to freeze.
Okay.
So it can rain on it, but it won't get in the peat moss itself. There's natural oils and stuff in there.
Since you're using his own lures, you can use more.
It's cheaper when I bring them in.
Yeah, I use a lot more.
That's why you always run out, but you get a lot more stuff.
On your flat sets, do you normally use bait, lure, or both?
It depends. I'll mix them up. But you got to keep in mind, my trapping in the last 6 or 7 years has been more control work. So my mindset's a lot different. When we did the study for the fauna recruitment for Georgia here, we had 120 traps out on 1,800 acres. That's a lot of traps. And when you do that, you don't want to do, like I'm going to pick on you in a minute about feathers. You can't become habituated to doing something the same, where every set you got feathers, because coyotes will pick up on that pretty quick. So you want to use sometimes just bait, sometimes just lure, sometimes it's a combination, it's different combinations. Then you throw in roadkill house cat and a chunk of a deer. So out of that 120 sets, there was probably only maybe 5 on the whole place that would be very similar in the smells on purpose. So, but if you're strung out over a big area, because y'all got big ground up there, it doesn't matter as much. But when you're on smaller places, you really got to mix it up. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you were going to do with this is you were going to put something right here.
Yeah, I was going to put a peak hole, a mouse hole underneath.
And what was this for?
Just a backing, a tractor.
Backing?
A tractor.
What are you trying to block, a mouse?
Yeah. See, here we go to the fox, the old fox trapping mentality. Hey, that's all we need to see. It was just mainly a tractor, and like I say, I was going to put the bait here, and then I would go over here and put another hole with the lure.
Well, I'm just fascinated with this. So if that's an attractant, how come that one's not an attractant?
It's sticking up a little bit more.
So this would make this 2 attractants?
I would prefer one that big around. Coming out here, falling over
So
trees.
you think just a stick sticking out here is going to count? And the reason behind that is, well, I mean, there's 1,000 sticks that are sticking out. So why would one be over the
It's
other?
a more open area. We have two intersection right here. We have,
You know I'm screwing with you, but I am having fun.
I know. We have a wide, that's all right. And then this here object stands out a little bit. Quit.
Okay. Well, what I thought you were going to do is try to put urine or gland on that. And because that's the reason I asked you to do it like a pea set. With coyotes, that's just not very good. Because
As far as yeah.
You know, because you only have 2 coyotes out of a pack that'll repeat, which is a male and a female. A male will pretty much do it year round. Female only does it from about now till about July. Well, take that back, end of February to about July. So really, if you do this like in November, you only have 1 coyote that's really going to mess with you. Young coyotes will not repeat on that. They may come up and smell it, but they're not going to repeat. So there's not a lot going on.
So in other words, they're just going to pay it a short visit and move on.
Yeah, it's quick.
I mean, they may be out here, or will they walk all the way up to it at that time?
And you always want to have ease when you put a set in. You want to be able to keep them there as long as you can, and you got to think about the weather on every single set that you put out, or it's going to come back and bite you in the butt.
Numerous times.
Yeah, because we've all had those lines where you get all excited about them, then they're screwed up for a week. So you always got to think about that. So I thought you was going to say you could put urine. Me for urine for a coyote. I hate to say this with all the friends I got in the supply business, I think it's a farce. I don't think it really matters at all.
Any time of the year. Not even with a combination of gland lure,
Not really. No, I mean, if I was gonna use urine, it'd be red fox or it'd be cat, and because that's more of a curiosity type thing. We don't have hardly any red fox anymore. And then you got the cat and dog thing with coyotes. But coyote urine to me, and I used to use a lot of it. You know, when I first started, I would put about an ounce on every set, and I caught a bunch of stuff. But when I quit using it, my catch ratio didn't make a bit of difference. And I make more money when I'm not spending money on urine. Because, you know, unless I use my own, but it doesn't make, to me, it doesn't really, there's no reason for it. Because a coyote, you think about a coyote, it's kind of like the deer industry. If you got 8 coyotes that are working the top of this ridge, and you watched a house dog that pees 20 times a day, and you got 8 of them, so you got 8 times 20, every 24 hours putting that much urine down, coming up and putting this to drop is not that big a deal. Because they're smelling it, you know, all the time. Plus you got fox and deer and people and everything. It's just not the draw.
You know, when do use a lot of urine, it seems like we do have a lot more deer trouble with our sets, you know.
It's because of the salt. I would say that's what I've been told.
Okay, let me enter. Since you have no faith in my set.
No, that's that one. I got faith in this one.
Would this be a micro location, not a good location?
Absolutely.
Is that what you would classify this as?
Yeah, because you've got, if a coyote comes off that road and comes down, you're going to catch him. If he comes out of these bottoms behind us, he's going to catch you. Coyotes by nature, because this is so open, they're going to hug this over here before they get out on that road. And they do that right here at this location because I catch stuff here. So you've got 3 ways they can get here and get caught. And then plus you got a field that's getting ready to have a bunch of mice in it when the corn and stuff starts coming up in it. So you got a lot going on. It's a great location.